My colleague stole my startup idea and partnered with a politician's brother. So I fought back and took everything back. I had been working at the National Startup Development Committee for nearly 7 years, and by then I knew the system inside out. My job was to review proposals, evaluate business plans, and recommend which applicants deserved government grants to turn their ideas into functioning companies. It was tedious work at times, but when you saw a worthy idea come to life, it felt like being part of something bigger. That's when I met Marta. We weren't just colleagues. For a while, we were inseparable. We'd stay late in the office, sharing coffee and sketching out ideas for the kind of startup we would launch together one day. Our best concept, the one we poured countless nights into, was a clean tech solution for affordable urban energy grids. It wasn't just promising, it was revolutionary. Then, without warning, things between us cooled. She became distant, taking longer lunches and avoiding our usual brainstorming sessions. I thought it was just personal. Maybe she'd lost interest in me. I didn't realize the scale of what she was planning. One Monday morning, I walked into the office to see her on the front page of the business section, smiling beside the deputy minister's brother. They had co-founded a company with our idea. My idea. Within a week, Marta's company had been awarded a $1.2 million government grant, the very type of funding I used to evaluate. I tried to raise questions internally, but instead of answers, I got a meeting with HR. They told me I was being terminated for a conflict of interest. Apparently, my prior relationship with Marta made it inappropriate for me to work on similar projects. I left the building that day with a cardboard box in my hands, my career in ruins, and a burning knot in my stomach. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The sting of betrayal was fresh, raw, and it gnawed at me with every passing day. How could Marta, someone I once trusted with my deepest ideas and late-night dreams, turn around and steal everything? Worse yet, she'd allied herself with the deputy minister's brother, a man whose influence could bulldoze any opposition. It wasn't just a personal wound. It was a calculated move to silence me and claim credit where none was hers. For days, I sat alone in my small apartment, staring at the blurred lines of my original sketches and notes scattered on the table. These were proof, drafts timestamped with my email, early prototypes shared only with Marta, and messages where we discussed every detail of the project. Every paper, every digital file was a brick in the foundation of my claim. I knew confrontation alone wouldn't be enough. Marta's connections ran deep, and any internal complaints would likely be swept under the rug. So, I started building a meticulous timeline, dates of development, meetings, and correspondences, all laying bare the truth. I reached out to former colleagues who had witnessed our collaboration. Many were hesitant at first, wary of rocking the boat, but once I shared my evidence, their support grew. Still, I needed a platform beyond bureaucratic channels. That's when I contacted Helen, an independent journalist renowned for exposing corruption and corporate backstabbing. I handed her everything. The emails, the drafts, and a detailed narrative of what had happened. Her eyes widened, and she promised discretion while digging into the story. At the same time, I reached out to the committee's legal department anonymously, providing them with the same evidence and urging a thorough investigation. I wasn't interested in revenge. I wanted justice. The days stretched on, tension mounting as I waited. But inside me, a fire burned brighter than ever. The fire of someone reclaiming what was stolen, not with rage, but with determination and undeniable truth. Weeks passed, and the story quietly started to ripple through the corridors of power. Helen's article was published, a carefully crafted expose that didn't just reveal Marta's betrayal, but laid out the intricate web of influence, nepotism, and stolen ideas. It wasn't sensationalized, but every fact was irrefutable, backed by emails, timestamps, and witness testimonies. The public reaction was swift. Investors who had lined up for Marta's startup began asking uncomfortable questions. The committee couldn't ignore the growing uproar. An internal investigation was launched, with Marta temporarily suspended from her position. The committee's legal team dove into my evidence and found it compelling enough to recommend revoking the grant. Meanwhile, I found myself thrust into a strange spotlight. Some colleagues reached out with support. Others avoided me, wary of the controversy. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from anonymous tipsters, concerned entrepreneurs, and even a few potential investors intrigued by the unfolding drama and my original project's promise. One afternoon, the committee's head called me in. He was a man who prided himself on impartiality, but admitted the situation was delicate. He promised that if the investigation confirmed the facts, steps would be taken to restore fairness and integrity. Though I remained cautious, a seed of hope grew. The battle wasn't over, but the tide was turning. For the first time since Marta's betrayal, I felt like I wasn't just a victim. I was a force to be reckoned with. That night, as I reviewed the latest legal documents and media clips, I allowed myself a small smile. The truth was out, and justice was finally within reach. The atmosphere at the committee shifted noticeably. The whispered conversations that once skirted around my name grew bolder, filled with questions and, occasionally, cautious nods of respect. The internal investigation team worked swiftly, combing through files and interviewing staff. I provided additional statements, ensuring every detail was precise and backed by evidence. Marta, once radiant in the spotlight, now moved like a shadow. The confident smiles vanished, replaced by guarded glances and curt responses. Rumors spread that the committee was seriously considering revoking the grant, a move that would not only cost her funding, but also tarnish her reputation irreparably. Despite the tension, I felt a strange calm. Each step forward was a small victory, not just for me, but for everyone who believed in fairness and hard work. I started reconnecting with investors who had shown interest in my project before the scandal. They were eager to hear my side, impressed by my resilience and the integrity of my work. Late one evening, as I prepared a presentation for potential backers, I reflected on how far I'd come. The theft of my idea had felt like an abyss at first, but it had forced me to fight in ways I never imagined. Now, with truth on my side and support growing, I was ready to launch my vision properly on my own terms. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in months, I allowed myself to imagine success not as a distant dream, but as an achievable reality. The committee's decision came quietly, but decisively. The grant awarded to Marta's company was formally rescinded, a statement citing breach of ethical guidelines and proven misappropriation of intellectual property. The news spread fast, igniting a firestorm among startup circles and government officials alike. Marta's name became synonymous with scandal, her ascent halted abruptly by the weight of undeniable evidence. Yet, amid the fallout, I remained focused on what truly mattered, bringing my project to life. With the support of a few seasoned investors who believed in my vision and respected my persistence, I finally secured seed funding. The irony was bittersweet. What I had fought to reclaim wasn't just an idea anymore, but a symbol of integrity in an industry often clouded by favoritism and secrecy. Building the startup from scratch was daunting. There were late nights filled with coding, marketing plans, and countless revisions. But each challenge reaffirmed my commitment. I wasn't just proving a point. I was proving that dedication and honesty could triumph even in the toughest environments. Meanwhile, Marta faced mounting pressure. The committee's official inquiry expanded, and whispers of legal action circulated. But I didn't seek to destroy her. My fight was never about vengeance. It was about fairness. I wanted to show that justice could be served without ruining lives unnecessarily. The journey had changed me. From a betrayed idealist to a determined entrepreneur, I was ready to redefine what success looked like for myself and for those who dared to dream honestly. As my startup gained traction, the media spotlight subtly shifted its focus. Interviews came not about the scandal, but about the innovative solutions we were developing. Our energy-efficient platform attracted attention from industry leaders and even international partners. It was a validation not just of the technology, but of the values we stood for: transparency, collaboration, and ethical innovation. Still, the shadows of the past lingered. Marta's attempts to regain favor faltered. The deputy minister distanced himself quietly, unwilling to jeopardize his own position. Several of her former allies within the committee resigned or were reassigned amidst the fallout. The committee itself underwent reforms, introducing stricter protocols to prevent conflicts of interest and protect intellectual property rights. I often thought back to the day I was dismissed, the weight of betrayal almost suffocating. But those memories fueled my resolve rather than diminishing it. Every line of code we wrote, every contract signed, felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. The journey wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt and exhaustion, but the support from my team and investors made the path clearer. One afternoon, as I toured our new office space bustling with activity, I realized how far I'd come. What started as a stolen dream had become a shared mission. And though the scars remained, they reminded me that resilience wasn't just surviving hardship. It was transforming it into strength. Months rolled on, and the company began to stabilize. Investors saw the potential in our clean tech solution, and contracts with several municipalities were signed. The tech community started to take notice, not just for the innovation, but for the story behind it. I became a quiet symbol of standing up against corruption, a beacon for entrepreneurs who had faced similar betrayals. The committee's investigation concluded with a comprehensive report. It confirmed the collusion between MARTA and influential officials, documenting the systematic suppression of honest innovators. The report led to several disciplinary actions, including the resignation of key committee members who had turned a blind eye. A new leadership team was appointed with a mandate to restore integrity and transparency. Despite the victory, I avoided gloating. MARTA's downfall was not my triumph, but a necessary correction. I focused on my company's growth, ensuring that our culture promoted fairness and respect, values I wished had prevailed in the committee from the start. Late one evening, as I reviewed our quarterly projections, I received a message from Helen, the journalist. She shared that several startups had reached out, inspired by the exposure of the case and eager to collaborate. It was a reminder that the ripple effects of truth could create waves of positive change. As I closed my laptop, I felt a mixture of exhaustion and hope. The journey had been arduous, but had taught me that justice, though slow, is relentless. And sometimes, the best revenge is building something better from the ashes of betrayal. As the company grew, so did the challenges. Navigating the competitive startup world was like sailing through turbulent seas, unexpected storms and sudden calms. Yet, every obstacle felt manageable because I knew the foundation we built was solid. The lessons from betrayal and resilience were embedded in our culture, reminding us daily why we fought so hard. MARTA faded into the background, her attempts to recover in the business world thwarted by the lasting stigma. Occasionally, news would surface of legal disputes involving her and her former allies, but I kept my distance. I didn't want my focus diluted by old wounds or petty retaliation. Instead, I concentrated on innovation and impact. One particularly memorable moment came when a major international investor flew in to tour our facilities. Impressed by our technology and transparency, they proposed a partnership that would open new markets and accelerate our mission to make urban energy affordable worldwide. It was the kind of breakthrough I had dreamed of but never dared hope for during those dark months. Late nights in the office became routine, filled with brainstorming sessions, product testing, and planning. The team had become a second family, diverse, passionate, and united by a shared vision. Watching young engineers bring ideas to life reignited my initial spark, reminding me that success wasn't just personal, it was communal. In moments of quiet reflection, I realized that the betrayal that once seemed like an insurmountable wall had become a stepping stone. It had forged a path I might never have taken otherwise, a path toward integrity, perseverance, and genuine achievement. The day finally came when our startup officially launched its first full-scale product. Months of hard work culminated in a sleek demo presented to an eager crowd of investors, industry experts, and journalists. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Our technology promised to revolutionize how cities manage their energy grids, making clean power accessible and affordable for all. I stood backstage before the presentation, heart pounding, not from nerves, but from a profound sense of accomplishment. Every setback, every moment of doubt, had led me to this point. MARTA's betrayal, once a dark cloud, now felt like a distant memory, replaced by the bright horizon of possibility. After the event, as applause filled the room, I caught a glimpse of Helen in the crowd, nodding approvingly. Her article had not only exposed the truth, but had helped open doors that once seemed sealed shut. Investors approached me with enthusiasm, eager to join the journey. Still, I remained grounded. I knew success could be fragile and that integrity had to be fiercely protected. I vowed to lead with transparency, to nurture innovation without sacrificing the principles that had carried me through the toughest fight of my life. That night, I returned home exhausted but fulfilled. Sitting by my window, I looked out over the city skyline, lights twinkling like distant stars. I thought of the long road behind me and the uncertain but promising road ahead. I whispered to myself, This is just the beginning. Update 1. The victory felt surreal. After months of battling, the grant was finally revoked, and Marta's company faced severe scrutiny. I remember sitting alone in my apartment, staring at the news headlines confirming the committee's decision. A wave of relief and vindication washed over me, but it was tempered by exhaustion and the knowledge that the real work was just beginning. I had taken a risk by sharing my story with Helen and the legal team. It wasn't just about exposing Marta. It was about setting a precedent, ensuring that no one else would suffer in silence. The public attention brought investors to my doorstep, people who believed in fairness and the power of innovation grounded in integrity. Yet, the emotional toll lingered. Rebuilding wasn't just about launching a startup. It was about healing trust and reclaiming confidence. I spent late nights reflecting on how close I'd come to losing everything, and how the betrayal had tested my resolve in ways I never imagined. But with every passing day, the fire inside me grew stronger. I was no longer just a victim. I was a fighter, a creator, and now a leader determined to build something lasting from the ruins of deceit. Freedom tasted sweeter than I imagined. The weight of injustice that had pressed down on my shoulders for months lifted with every email from new supporters, every meeting with investors who saw potential in my vision rather than scandal. It was as if the truth itself had cleared a path through the corporate fog that once threatened to suffocate me. Meanwhile, the fallout within the committee was palpable. Leadership changes swept through like a storm. Those who had turned blind eyes or participated in the cover-up were quietly pushed out or resigned under pressure. Marta's influence crumbled, and whispers spread that she would struggle to find backing for any future ventures. The deputy minister distanced himself publicly, denying any involvement, but the damage was done. Despite the chaos around me, I remained focused on my startup. Every line of code, every business call felt infused with purpose. I wasn't just building a company, I was reclaiming my future. The settlement money, though not extravagant, provided enough runway to scale operations and invest in talent that shared my passion and ethics. There were moments of quiet reflection, too, pondering how a single act of betrayal could ripple outward, affecting lives and careers. But in those moments, I reminded myself that justice, when pursued with integrity, could heal and rebuild rather than destroy. Months after the verdict, the startup was no longer just a project. It was a movement. Our clean tech solution began gaining traction globally, and with every contract signed, I felt the weight of Marta's betrayal lessen. The scars remained, but they no longer defined me. In a quiet but symbolic turn, the committee announced new ethical guidelines to prevent abuses like the one I faced. They credited the investigation as a catalyst for reform, a small victory for integrity in a world too often clouded by favoritism and corruption. Marta faded from the headlines. The deputy minister's brother quietly stepped away from the spotlight, his ambitions curtailed. For me, it was never about vengeance, but restoring balance. The truth had prevailed, not through destruction, but through persistence and transparency. Standing in the glow of our first international launch event, surrounded by a team that believed in more than just profit, I felt a deep sense of peace. This was the future I had fought for, not just mine, but for every innovator silenced by power and deceit. The journey had been long and painful, but it had forged me into someone stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.